It's Justin here with Lucha Adventures. So I've been kind of going through a couple of different ideas in my head for making like a hasty harness. So for those of you in the vertical rope community, you know that a lot of times we teach how to make like a Swiss seat or a diaper harness or a hasty harness out of tubular webbing or cordage or whatever, in the event that you need to get on some ropes in a vertical environment and you don't have your harness with you. I've never really seen that carried over to the scuba diving industry. I do recall seeing pictures from like old sump videos back when like side mount wasn't really a thing yet and people were making their own little harnesses. But I've not really heard of any kind of a straightforward modern method to just use something basic and put together a quick harness. Well, the other day I had the opportunity to dive in a spring down here in Florida, and I had left all my dive gear at home, and a buddy had an extra tank and an extra reg set, but nothing else. So I threw together a harness with a ratchet strap, and it worked for its basic purposes. But it got me to thinking, like, could I rig up something that would work as a, maybe not as ideal, but a fairly decent harness using just some tubular webbing or cordage or something like that. So I went to the dollar store just down the road from where I'm staying here, and I picked up for like $3.50 a 50-foot roll of paracord. Now I do believe that this is going to work a lot better with like 1-inch nylon tubular webbing or something like that. But we're going to give this a shot. I want to legitimately see, I haven't done this yet, so you guys are going to come along with me for the ride. I want to legitimately see if I can make an okay harness with this that would work well in the springs. So first thing I want to do, I've kind of run some ideas through my head, and so hopefully I can do this in one take and make something. But let's open this up, and then I'm gonna spool this all out, figure out how they've got it rolled up here anyways. This might take a second. Get all the little coils out. There's 50 foot of it. And based on what I know from harness stuff and what I did the other day, it's going to take me somewhere in the ballpark of 25 foot to make this harness. And with that in mind, I'm just going to double this one up and make it ever so slightly thicker and less likely to bite into my skin. Like I said, I do believe webbing would probably be better for this, but we're going to make this work. So there we go. I'm going to find the ends. We're going to tie the ends together so I don't lose those. And then now I want to double it up, so I'm going to follow this back to the midway point. Bum, 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 bum. There we go. And now one more time. Ooh, it's got a little nick in there already. Came that way. Oh well. So I'm going to put those ends together, and I'm going to find a new midpoint to start my harness. Now, those of you who already side mount dive, I'm going to make this into a side mount harness. It just makes the most sense. For those of you who side mount dive, you know you've got the crotch strap, the waist strap, the shoulder straps, and there's a connection in the spine down those shoulders. So what I'm going to do is that collection point in the back, what we normally have as a lumbar plate, should be like right over top of your tailbone. So I'm going to take this loop here. We can go ahead and tie it so I know this is the center, something like that. Nothing fancy. Now that's going to become a crotch strap, so this will come behind me. So I'm going to hold this at about the height that a crotch strap should be. I'm going to hold this right there near where my lumbar plate would be on a harness, and then just tie an overhand where I marked that. So that should be, as long as I didn't move it around too much while tying the knot, it should be about the right spot. Seems to be. Now I'm going to hold that, and I'm going to draw this up on my back. Actually, here's another idea. Told you, you're along for the ride. I'm figuring this out as we go. So I'm going to put this crotch strap on the back where the lumbar plate would be. So I'm building this backwards right now. So that's where the lumbar plate would be. That right here is where the crotch strap would be. However, it's also the same height. So I'll bring this up to about the height that my shoulder blades are. So you can see that if I stand up straight, right there. And I'm going to tie another knot there. So this will become kind of like my thoracic plate up there between my shoulder blades. All right. And now, their tails in opposite directions here. I'm making a mess. Oh no. There we go. So now I can just take my two sides, kind of become shoulder straps. Let's put all that doubled up stuff behind me. Bring that crotch strap up. That's where that would go. Now if you look, I've got shoulder straps, a spine strap, and a crotch strap built. So now, right up here, I was playing around with this when I made the ratchet strap one too. Without D-rings, it actually worked fairly well just to simply tie a knot and then clip with the webbing. That knot was thick enough that when I clipped a bolt snap over top of it, it couldn't slide past. I think on this one, I'll probably tie 2 knots, and then because it's 2 pieces of paracord thick, that'll give me a point where I can kind of split those apart and clip right in between them if I need to clip on, you know, whatever attachment point, whether it's for my bungee or whatever. We'll do the same thing on the other side. We're going to keep this symmetrical for the most part. Put that one up kind of high. There we go. And put another one just a few inches below it. So these are going to kind of replace the concept of the D-rings where we attach everything. So there I have those. And now let's bring these back to that lumbar plate, but I need to kind of measure how long they should be. So let's go right like this. There's the lumbar. Stand up straight, and there we have it. So let me try to hold those as best I can and not lose my spot. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to tie a knot in this right where it should go up against that lumbar knot. I'm going to just start calling them that. I got a thoracic knot, a lumbar knot. Got all my knots matched up to normal side mount rig plates and such. There's that. And then this one here is going to be the same length because it's symmetrical. So it'll be right here. And this is simply a place marker so that I know exactly where to run this through my lumbar. So there's my shoulder straps. All right, there's my lumbar. Let's bring these down. Now what I'm gonna do, if you can keep track of me here, so I've doubled it up. That's my crotch loop. That's just a knot to hold that together. So there's 4 strands thick right here. This comes up, this is going to be my lumbar plate there right above my tailbone. And there's still 4 strands, comes up. They create that thoracic knot right between my shoulder blades. And then I split 2 strands one way, becomes a shoulder strap, 2 strands the other way becomes a shoulder strap. I've tied a marker down here where this needs to be tied into my lumbar knot. So I'm just gonna loosen up that lumbar knot, not so much that I'm gonna lose where it's at, but then I'll take this shoulder strap, feed it through the lumbar knot until I get to my marker knot, and then we'll just kind of overhand it into place so it doesn't want to go anywhere. And that should do it. And then we'll do the exact same thing with the other shoulder strap. So there's my marker knot. Going to come back down here to where that lumbar is. Let's tie that in. This may be a long video, but it's also pretty accurate to real time. You can see exactly how long this takes. This is my first time doing it. You watch me open the paracord. We're just figuring this out together. Feel free to either never do this because it's not as awesome as having an actual rig, or if you're gonna play around with it, make your modifications and DIY what you gotta do. Here we go. All right, and then let's tighten that lumbar knot back down with those shoulder straps in it. So now I've got the basis of a harness. There we go. Okay, so those come around. So this is starting to look like a side mount harness, side mount rig. And then I'm figuring on just taking these, kind of tying them on me, so then that would create the rest of the harness. But let's go ahead and put on a couple of attachment points here. I'm gonna throw in an overhand. Back here at a further back attachment, in case I wanna have my GoPro with me. I always like to attach my GoPro back here on my hip. Doesn't dangle, but it's easy to get to. In fact, we could do several of these knots along the way, so I have adjustments that I could attach a tank onto. We're going to be using aluminum tanks, otherwise I will be severely overweighted and have no way to create lift. So we're going to want some more forward attachments, because aluminum tanks need a forward attachment. So when I played around with it the other day, I used an aluminum 80, and everybody's going to vary, but for me, an aluminum 80 was just the right buoyancy characteristics that I was able to go without a BC and just, control everything with lung volume. At the beginning of the dive, I needed to have pretty full lungs, breathing off the top of my lungs the entire time. Not so much to hurt myself, but about as much as I could manage without hurting myself. And then by the time the tank was half down to like 1500 PSI, then all of a sudden it got real easy to breathe because the tank didn't weigh as much, had less air in it. Air has weight. For those of you that don't know, a cubic foot of air is in the ballpark of 0.077, 0.076, something like that, pounds. But roughly speaking, if you were to take however many cubic feet you have, take 3/4 of it and move the decimal over. That's about how much the air is going to weigh. So let's say, for easy math, I have a 100 cubic foot cylinder. 3/4 of that is 75. And if I move the decimal over, I have 7.5. And if you do the exact math, you'll find that that's within a pound, probably within a half a pound, of what 100 cubic feet of air actually weighs, somewhere in that ballpark of 7.5 pounds. So you can always tell, like, hey, if I'm going to use 60 cubic feet of gas, then it's going to be 3/4 of that is 45, so about 4.5 pounds of buoyancy shift from the beginning to the end of the dive. So cool, that's my TED talk. All right, I got knots, lots of knots. This is a knotty harness. Don't do this. Now, let's see, the best way to tie this off, possibly just a square knot with some backup knots. Okay, so I played around with it just a little bit more before we get in the water. Instead of a square knot, I just tied a loop here on that left-hand side. So I've still got where the crotch strap comes up through the middle, but now I can just stick that, get that out of the way so you can see the difference here. I've got my crotch strap, and I've got that loop that I tied. And now I can take this side, that right side, pull it through, and it can actually work more of a cinching it down kind of a method. So it's kind of like a trucker hitch, but I'll bring this around and I can do an overhand. I want to make this a slippery hitch, something that I can pull on it and undo it, like so. So now that's fairly secure. And then I can lock this off with a half hitch or an overhand or something, but the tension is going to be on that first one, therefore I don't have to worry about it being like impossible to get off when I'm out of the water. And then I'll go ahead and, off video, I'm going to trim this extra bit here, just tie a knot, trim off the excess, melt it. But there you have it. But that gives me shoulder straps, and let me find, so I've got just a bolt snap here. If I need to attach in, I just go like that, and that gives me a secure location where it won't go anywhere. And then I can do the same thing on my waist straps. If I attach in, It's not able to get past my knots because I only attached to one of them, so it's trapped in there. But that's actually, I mean, for $3.50, that's the basis. And then, you know, I can have the tank. So what I did the other day, the little harness that I made, I had the tank just kind of hanging from me, so it hung like down here. Was not pretty. I was not proud of the tank trim at all, but it worked. I was able to dive around. But I could do like a direct bungee, which I'll probably do. I'll show you some video of how this works in the water. So, well, as long as it works, I'll show you the video. If it doesn't work, then you're never gonna see this. So get this out of my way here. But when I get in the water, my game plan is to actually take some like 1/4-inch bungee. Again, you know, it's like 30 cents a foot at the hardware store. And I'm just going to tie it right in here, run it behind my back to the other side, and tie it right in here. So instead of loop bungees, which again, you could do loop bungees, that's what I prefer on my normal harness. Just trying to think of how to rig that in when it's not a real solid piece. But if I have direct bungees that go all the way around, and then I'll just be able to take a bit of it right here and kind of like hoop that around the tank, make sure that the tank is clipped on at the waist, and I believe, it might not be perfect, but we're about to find out. I believe it should set, you know, pretty nice. We're gonna give that a shot, so stay tuned. All right, so it worked, so you get to see the video. Trim is not ideal, but it is plenty good enough. It'll get you around for a quick putsy. Full disclaimer though, I am making my own decisions here and taking my own risks. I am not condoning diving without a BC, you know, buoyancy compensator, and I'm not condoning trying untested methods in this kind of environment. However, you know, I'm giving it a shot, so you can live vicariously through me in this case. As you can see, this rig works. I'm able to get to the hand wheel, check pressure, switch regs. Here my clip-in points are working. That's just what I wanted. Don't have it on camera because it was the camera, but I was able to clip and unclip my GoPro just fine. Kind of had extra storage spaces. So I think it's really cool that for less than $5 I was able to make a rig that I would feel perfectly fine just diving around in a little recreational environment like this and kind of seeing what's up. And I also got this little video just with a single tank on instead of two. Same concept, everything's the same except I took off that right tank. And this would be like a perfect setup for just diving underneath of your boat to get something you dropped or that kind of thing. But hope you enjoyed this video. It'd be great if you would like and subscribe, and we'll see what else I can bring to you in the future. You guys take care.